Everyone in the waiting room saw the little girl trembling in her mother's arms, but no one moved. Her lips were turning blue, her breath shallow and sharp. But the staff glanced over like she was a smudge on their polished floor. The receptionist clicked her nails against the desk, asking for insurance before oxygen. A nurse stifled a laugh. Security was called, not a doctor. The mother begged, wept, cradled her daughter as her tiny body convulsed, and still nothing. In that sterile room of privilege and silence, a child nearly died, not from illness, but indifference. But what they didn't know was who that mother really was, and what she was about to do. Snow lashed against the windshield as Isla Moreno pulled up to the circular driveway of Mira Hills Medical Center, a sleek, glass fortress of a hospital, perched like royalty above the sleepy Vermont town. Mira Hills was known to the world as a sanctuary for the elite. Politicians, CEOs, and foreign dignitaries flew in from across the globe to be treated within its pristine white walls. But to Isla, it was just a building that might hold the only chance of saving her daughter. Her daughter, Emery, whimpered in the back seat, her tiny frame shaking under the weight of a spiking fever. Isla leapt out, barely remembering to throw the gear in park. She pulled open the back door and scooped her daughter into her arms. Emery's skin was hot to the touch, burning. Her breaths were rapid, shallow. Her eyes barely fluttered open. Isla burst through the automatic sliding doors into the emergency room. "Please, someone help. My daughter's burning up." Heads turned. The waiting room was silent for a beat too long. A woman in pearls shifted uncomfortably. A man in a $1,000 coat wrinkled his nose. The receptionist, a young woman with manicured nails and heavy makeup, looked Isla up and down before responding. "Insurance card?" Isla blinked. "She needs help. Right now, she's struggling to breathe. Please." "Ma'am, I need your insurance card before we can triage. That's protocol." "I don't have it. Just check her in. She's 7. The receptionist clicked her acrylic nails on the desk. "If you can't provide proof of elite tier insurance, we can't proceed. This is Mira Hills, not a public clinic." A nurse nearby laughed under her breath. Probably wandered in from a valley. Isla turned. "She's a child. She has a fever of 105. Are you really saying you won't even look at her?" The receptionist rolled her eyes. "Do you understand how liability works, ma'am? We are not equipped to handle charity cases. There's a clinic on Maple Ridge you can try. They may accept walk-ins." Emery groaned in her arms. Isla's eyes welled. She looked around the waiting room. Dozens of people watched, many with judgment in their eyes. No one stood to help. No one offered support. Just silent stares, or worse, smirks. "Please," Isla said, her voice cracking. "She's my only child. I don't care about a room. Just a doctor. Please, just check her vitals." A suited man, hospital security, approached. He was tall, broad, with a polished badge reading S. Walsh. He looked at Isla as though she were contagious. "Ma'am, you're disturbing the peace." "Disturbing the—" Isla's voice broke into a disbelieving laugh. "She's dying, and you're worried about peace?" He looked at Emery. "If it's really an emergency, you should have gone to County General. It was too far. This was closest." "Then I'm afraid you made a mistake." He took a step forward. "I'm going to have to ask you to leave." Isla gripped Emery tighter, stepping back. "Don't touch me." "Then walk." The nurse behind the triage desk whispered something to the receptionist, who smirked. A few wealthy patients chuckled among themselves. Maybe she thought this was a shelter, one of them sneered, or a soup kitchen. Isla's cheeks burned with shame, not for herself, but for what these people represented. Her boots, soaked from the snow, squeaked against the polished floor as she turned and sat in a corner chair, rocking Emery gently. Emery's breathing was rapid. Her lips were beginning to turn pale. "Help her," Isla whispered to no one. "Just one decent human being. Please." No one came. Minutes dragged into an hour. The fluorescent lights above buzzed with indifference. Twice, Isla approached the desk again. Both times she was turned away, first with cold silence, then with a pointed threat. Security would involve law enforcement. Do you want us to call the police? The receptionist snapped. Because we will. It was then that Emery had a seizure. Her little body arched, arms stiffening as a soft choking sound emerged. Isla screamed. People turned. Some gasped, but no one moved. Call a doctor, she shrieked. Please. She's having a seizure. A nurse leaned over to another. Did you catch that on the camera feed? Legal's going to love this. Isla's eyes burned with rage. Her baby was dying in her arms, and they were watching like it was some kind of entertainment. In desperation, she pulled out her phone and dialed a number she hadn't used in over a year. Yes? A voice on the other end answered. Isla didn't speak her name. She didn't need to. Activate emergency code gray. Immediate intervention. Mira Hills Medical Center. Child involved. The voice went quiet, then simply said, Yes, Dr. Moreno. Right away. Within minutes, everything changed. The sound of approaching sirens filled the air. An unmarked black SUV rolled up to the ER doors. Media vans screeched into the parking lot. Armed officers in black suits stormed through the sliding doors with purpose. Security scrambled. The receptionist paled. Nurses backed up as if they'd seen a ghost. From the SUV emerged a team of elite physicians and paramedics in tactical medical gear. One of them rushed to Isla. Dr. Moreno, he said, kneeling. Let us take her. Isla nodded and gently transferred Emery to their stretcher. Vitals dropping. She's hypoxic, the medic said. Let's move. Oxygen. Notify Dr. Singh to prep emergency pediatrics. The entire ER froze. The wealthy patients looked confused. A woman in pearls whispered, Wait, who did they just call her? Isla rose slowly, her soap boots no longer squeaking, but stomping. She faced the receptionist. You remember when you asked me for my insurance card? The woman could barely nod. You refused treatment to the CEO of the One Care Global Foundation, the organization that owns this hospital. Gasps erupted. Phones were pulled out. Video began recording. Isla stepped toward the triage nurse. You laughed. You watched my daughter seize and laughed. The nurse opened her mouth, but said nothing. Isla turned to the head of security. Mr. Walsh, you're fired. Effective immediately. So is every single person in this room who turned their back on a dying child. The medics were already wheeling Emery down the hall. Isla paused and looked around one last time. Her voice was low, even calm. This hospital no longer belongs to the elite. As of today, Mira Hills is a sanctuary for all. You made a mistake mocking a mother. Now, watch what a mother with power can do. As Isla followed the stretcher down the hall, news cameras rolled, and within minutes, the world began to hear the story of a hospital that refused to help a child, and the mother who would change everything. The hallway leading to the pediatric ICU was suddenly alive with urgency. White coats and Navy uniforms buzzed past, orders fired off like precision missiles. Emery's stretcher was flanked by 2 trauma nurses, an emergency physician and a respiratory specialist. Tubes, monitors, and 4 bags followed in a mechanical ballet of organized chaos. Isla walked beside them, her coat soaked through, her fingers trembling. Not from cold, but from the sudden release of adrenaline. Her child was being helped now. Finally, but the ache of those agonizing moments in the waiting room hadn't faded. If anything, it was being carved into her memory like a scar. BP dropping, 80/45. She's septic. We need to push fluids and start broad-spectrum antibiotics. Code in labs. We need a CBC, CMP, and cultures. Now. As they pushed through double doors into the ICU wing, a tall, dark-haired woman in surgical scrubs approached at full speed. Her badge read Dr. Meena Singh, Chief of Pediatric Medicine. Dr. Moreno, she said breathlessly, meeting Isla's eyes. We're ready for her. Isla nodded. She's in septic shock. Seizure began 5 minutes ago. Likely secondary to untreated strep or viral pneumonia. I couldn't get anyone in this building to even look at her. Dr. Singh's jaw tightened. I saw the footage. I'm sorry, Isla. I didn't know. I swear I didn't know. Isla didn't answer. She followed them to the operating suite before a nurse gently blocked her path. "You can't go past this point," the nurse said. "You know the rules." Isla looked through the window at her daughter's small, unconscious form being intubated, her hands clenched into fists. She hated the rules, the protocols, the hierarchy that had once served order but now only served power. She stepped back, forcing a breath into her lungs. "Take care of her," she said, voice cracking. "We will," Dr. Singh assured, "with everything we've got." The doors swung closed. Hours later, the penthouse-level conference room was as silent as a tomb. The glass walls overlooked the snow-covered town below, pristine and serene, completely at odds with the storm inside. Isla stood at the head of the mahogany table, now dressed in dry scrubs, her damp hair tied back. Seated around her were 10 board members of Mirror Hills Medical Center, each more uncomfortable than the last. Some were fidgeting with their ties, others checking their phones, hoping for any excuse to leave. But no one dared, because Isla Moreno wasn't just any doctor. She was a majority stakeholder. As of this moment, she began, sliding a thick manila folder across the table. "These are the termination notices for 17 staff members who participated, enabled, or ignored what happened in your emergency department." An older board member, Richard Gable, VP of Finance, cleared his throat. "Isla, with all due respect, a full purge to expose us to litigation. We need to be cautious." Isla's gaze could have cut glass. "You want to talk about exposure? My daughter nearly died. In your hospital, on camera, because of discrimination." Another member, a woman with pearl earrings and a cold expression, said, "It's not so simple. Protocols." "No," Isla interrupted. "Let's be clear. This wasn't about protocols. It was about perception. The moment they saw me, my clothes, my boots, my panic, they decided I was beneath them, that my child didn't belong in Mirror Hills." She looked each of them in the eye. "From this moment forward, Mirror Hills is no longer for the elite. It is a refuge, a sanctuary. We will still treat VIPs, yes, but not at the cost of ignoring those in need. The foundation that funds this hospital has more than enough resources to implement a multi-tier system of care. No one will ever be turned away again." Gable folded his arms. "You're going to burn our brand to the ground." "No," Isla said evenly. "I'm going to rebuild it." She tapped on the iPad in front of her. A slide projected on the wall. The Mirror Humanity Initiative. Free clinics. Shuttle services. Emergency rooms with bilingual triage staff. An open-door urgent care wing. A percentage of beds reserved every day for walk-ins without proof of insurance. "This is insane," someone muttered. Isla raised her hand to quiet the room. "You're right. It is insane that it took a child nearly dying in front of your cameras for any of you to even see the problem. That's the real madness." Meanwhile, pediatric ICU, room 407. Dr. Singh adjusted the 4 on Emery's arm, her gloved hand trembling slightly. The child had stabilized. Her fever had broken, but she was still unconscious, still pale. "She's lucky," a nurse whispered. "Most kids don't get intervention this quickly." Dr. Singh gave her a look. "She's lucky her mother is who she is. If that were anyone else's child, she'd be dead." The nurse swallowed. "It's going viral, you know? The footage, the security tapes. It's all over the news." Dr. Singh glanced at the TV mounted in the corner. Indeed, it was already being picked up by national channels. "Breaking. CEO doctor disguised as civilian denied ER access. Hospital under fire." She sighed. "God help us all." Later that evening, ICU viewing window. Isla sat in a metal chair facing the large glass panel of Emery's room. The steady beep of machines was a strange comfort. Her daughter was alive. Alive. She pressed her forehead to the glass, her breath fogging the surface. "She's a fighter," a voice said softly beside her. Dr. Singh stood holding 2 paper cups of coffee. She handed one over. "Thank you," Isla whispered. "She's stable now, but we'll keep her sedated for another day. Let the brain rest." Isla nodded, silent for a moment. Then They didn't know who I was, and they let her seize. They would have let her die. Dr. Singh looked down. That's on all of us. I used to believe in this place, Isla said. I thought I could help make it better from the top. That being in power was enough. And now I know it's not power that matters. It's who you're willing to fight for when you have it. Outside Mira Hills Medical Center entrance, reporters gathered like vultures around the hospital gates. Microphones thrust forward. Questions flew. Dr. Moreno, do you plan to resign? Is this the end of Mira Hills' luxury status? What will happen to the staff who denied treatment? But Isla didn't stop to answer. She walked through them with quiet strength, wrapped in a simple coat, Emery's favorite scarf tucked around her neck. Back inside, the receptionist who had refused her earlier was now being escorted out, her face white, her hands shaking. Security, new ones, had been instructed to clean house. Above the main lobby, new posters were being hung. Mira Hills, health without judgment, care without borders. In the darkness, Emery's room. That night, as snow continued to fall and silence wrapped the ICU, a tiny hand twitched under the blanket. Isla, asleep in the chair beside the bed, didn't notice at first. But then, Mommy? Isla bolted upright. Tears sprang to her eyes. Emery's face was pale, her voice barely above a whisper, but her eyes were open, and they were filled with something Isla hadn't seen in days. Recognition. Life. I'm here, Isla whispered, brushing a strand of hair from her daughter's forehead. You're safe now. Emery looked around the sterile room. Are we in the fancy hospital? Isla smiled through the tears. Yes, baby, but don't worry. It's going to be for everyone now. The morning after Isla's declaration, Mira Hills didn't open to the usual hush of whispered privilege and curated calm. It woke to chaos. News vans parked like vultures outside the front gates. Reporters in sleek coats huddled near the main entrance, live streaming updates to a stunned public. Headlines screamed from every screen. Elite hospital denies child emergency care. CEO mother reveals herself in fiery reversal. Inside, the staff walked on glass. Administrators barked orders. HR officers began emergency evaluations. And the receptionist from the night before? Gone. Her desk was empty. Her nameplate removed before sunrise. But Isla wasn't interested in revenge. She stood outside Emery's room on the 4th floor, watching her daughter sleep. Emery's tiny hand curled loosely around the plush rabbit Isla had found in her old handbag, one she bought years ago during medical relief work overseas. A soft knock on the door pulled Isla from her thoughts. Dr. Moreno? It was Dr. Singh, head of pediatrics. Unlike the others, he hadn't been in the ER last night. His voice was gentle, filled with quiet awe. She's stable now. Vitals are holding. The infection was aggressive, but the 4 antibiotics are working. Isla exhaled, her fingers trembling slightly as she smoothed Emery's blanket. Thank you. And thank you for not pretending like this didn't happen. Dr. Singh stepped closer. I reviewed the footage. Everything. I wanted to vomit. She turned, her face tired but fierce. You think you're the only one? I founded OneCare because I believed health care could be humane. But I never wanted my name on golden plaques. I wanted change. Real, raw change. He hesitated, then said quietly, Then change us. She blinked. Excuse me? Don't just fire people. Stay. Take charge. Be here. We need someone who sees what you see. Isla studied him. In that moment, she didn't see another doctor trying to save face. She saw a man who had stayed long enough in a gilded cage that he'd forgotten the sky outside. She nodded once. We'll start with full patient intake policy revisions. No more elite tier prioritization. I want financial aid restructured. Triage protocols rewritten. And every single person, admin, janitor, surgeon, will go through reorientation. Dr. Singh looked stunned. You're serious. Deadly. She turned back to Emery. The child's chest rose and fell in soft, even rhythm. Later that afternoon, Isla took the elevator to the executive floor. The silence there was colder. These were the floors untouched by reality. Until now. She entered the boardroom. Every seat was filled. Her eyes scanned the faces, some pale, others defiant. One woman, in a tailored blazer, scoffed. "Isla, you're letting your emotions compromise a very delicate system. Do you even realize how many VIPs we'll lose if we remove their tiered services?" Isla walked slowly to the head of the table. "I'm counting on it." Gasps. A man at the far end muttered, "You'll tank the brand." Isla's smile didn't reach her eyes. "Then we'll build a new one. One that doesn't cost a child her life." She pulled out a stack of folders. These are files from the last 3 years. Cases turned away. Families billed into homelessness. Kids who died waiting. She threw the folders on the table. Paper scattered. "You call this a system? I call it rot. And I'm tearing it out." Silence. Then one voice, trembling. Do you think people will forgive us?" A younger board member asked. Isla turned to him, her gaze softening slightly. "They won't forgive you. Not yet, but they might forgive the hospital if we start acting like one." That night, as Isla sat by Emery's bed, the little girl stirred. Her eyelids fluttered. "Mama?" Isla gripped her hand gently. "I'm here, baby." Where are we? In a place that forgot what kindness meant. But we're going to remind them. Emery smiled faintly. "You always fix things." Isla kissed her forehead. "Only because you make me brave." Down the hall, renovations had already begun, literally and metaphorically. The executive lounge was being repurposed into an urgent care suite. A gold-plated chandelier was boxed up for auction. The proceeds would go toward an open-access pediatric wing. Outside, as snow continued to fall, a small group of families gathered at the hospital gates. Some from the valley, some from town. They had seen the news. They had heard what happened. And for the first time in years, they believed Mira Hills might finally have a place for them.